Hi, my name is Martin and I'm doing a few videos to try and explain and communicate as clearly as we can some of the things we feel God is leading us in here at Woodside Church. So this is very much for the Woodside family, although happy for others to view this, may find some of this interesting. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't just share things in different contexts. And so some people knew about one part of what we're talking about, others knew about another part. We felt we wanted a way to bring this all together. And so I'm doing a few videos over this period to try and do that. And to my best ability to explain some of the amazing things God is doing amongst us. We've talked about how He's given us the green light to launch into the West. We've talked about how we've been led to change and develop and grow the staff team to serve a new multi-site vision. We've talked about how God has really underlined in us that He wants to grow us in the area of the Spirit, and as we pursued that, God began to break out in our lives in fresh ways, personally but also corporately. And we've also talked about how we feel God has led us to seek to break ground in Wellingborough and Rushden and that area, and just to see if there's a multiplication that could happen there, whether that's a church plant one day, whether that's a Woodside Church site, we really don't know. But the main thing is we feel God is saying go again, and so that's exactly what we're doing. But this last video that I'd like to talk to you about really flows from part of our DNA, and it's connected to the final line of our DNA, which says this: that we're seeking to equip and release everyone into God's purposes. So it's very much anchored in that, wanting to identify all that God is doing in people's lives and do the best that we can to equip those and release people. We are also recognizing that very deep in our DNA, if you like, is a heart for the nations and a belief that God is and has always been calling Woodside to impact the nations. And so this is a blend of equipping and releasing, but also feeling very clearly called to the nations, as we have been for many years. Let me first talk about the nations. Through David Demish's ministry, Woodside, in terms of their stretch and in terms of their impact and their effect in the world, is remarkable. And others, of course, have got involved and caught up into the nations too over the years, and still some today. But particularly through David's ministry, where Woodside's been very generous in releasing him, and then very much as part of New Frontiers, Woodside has played a part in reaching many nations, many hundreds of churches, now new apostolic teams coming through. And so it really is something to celebrate and rejoice and to honour. But as we discussed as a team recently, we've still felt that the nations was very much on our heart. And some of you will know Dan Martin, who's now in Turkey, which would be a good example of that. But we felt God was leading us into a different season on how we would impact the nations. And to put it in simple terms, whereas previously David and some others have gone and served other nations and then come back, we feel God is leading us into a season where to multiply and to be a multiplying church, which we feel is part of what God has said to us, also means multiplying churches and planting churches in other nations too. In fact, as a way of illustrating this, I think I know of 3 or 4 couples, I think it's 4 couples, that have spoke to me or one of the team fairly recently and have said, one day we want to go to that nation, or we want to plant a church there. One day we want to go to that nation, we want to plant a church there. And so this may not be something that happens immediately, and maybe something that unpacks over the coming years, but we believe God is saying to us that part of our DNA is to reach the nations. But it's going to look different this time. It's going to be about planting churches in different nations around the world. We're very excited about that. We wanted to share that with you. We would encourage you to pray into that, please. We do not have all the answers, of course, but we feel God is beginning to say what it means to be a multiplying church has far greater impact than maybe we first understood. So we feel God is speaking to us about that. I guess partnering with that back to the DNA in terms of releasing and equipping people into all God's called them to do, into God's purposes for them. We have been really encouraged and pleased by an initiative by Tim and Katie May and some others too, to run a training course called Equipped to Pastor. It's been a great initiative. 70 or 80 people have signed up for it. The teaching and the training has been of high quality, different people from the church leading those times. And we see God's grace on that, and so we're encouraged by that. But it has also encouraged us to think about what other ways could we serve, equip and release people into all God has for them. And so I particularly am going to look at an equipped to lead training track, and look to how I can, to the best of my ability, serve all of those that are involved in different forms of leadership. So we're looking at equipped to lead. We're also going to be in time looking maybe to something called equipped to plant. What about those of us who feel called to church plant? How are we going to serve people in that? But also particularly this idea of planting churches into the nations. This is something that we can see in the coming years, that David, using his incredible experience of cross-cultural mission, would run effectively an equipped to go to the nations type of gathering, where we would prepare people well for going to the nations. So there's lots to process. Some of what I've just shared, of course, is going to take some years to unpack, but we feel God has given us a clear trajectory and a clear sense of who we're called to be. We're clear on our DNA, and we seek to align ourselves to that. That's the plumb line. And if there's ever an area where we think we need to strengthen that, well, then we will seek to do that as we have shared. But God has also said that we're to be a generous church, a multiplying church, and so we are running after that too. I'm so grateful to be part of what I think is an amazing church family, which is rich in love for one another. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I know I can speak for Dawn. We love Woodside so much, and it is a privilege to play our part. But it is a privilege to be part of an amazing family that love God. But not only that, they love the lost, and they're seeking to play their part to further the glory of Jesus. So that's what we're buying into, and we're grateful for the opportunity to share these videos, and we look forward to all that God has for us together. Thank you so much.